back. This next duo, Ben Pettingill and Michael Rolls, are extraordinary. At age 16, Ben woke with a headache and lost 98% of his sight overnight.
While in 2021, Mike contracted meningococcal, resulting in the loss of his legs. Now they're mates on a mission to reduce the stigma around mental health. Welcome to the studio, Ben and Mike.
Thank you very much for having us.
Ben, we might start with your journey. Can you take us back to the moment where your life changed forever?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was, as you said, 16 years old, sitting up the back of my classroom at school, typical day, normal day, and looking at the diagram that the teacher was drawing on the board, I was thinking something doesn't look quite right here. It was this tiny, tiny little bit blurry, similar to the blur that you get when you've sort of got the sun out on the horizon, you've got that shimmer, that haze, and that's similar to what it was like. And ran it past a few people, parents, things like that, when I kept noticing it more and more. And once Mum got a hold of the information, obviously we absolutely had to go and get it checked out, and they very much played it down and said, look, we're pretty sure we know what's going on. It's very common, it's just an inflammation, the optic nerve. We'll get you all sorted, stay in overnight, everything will be fine. And the next morning, woke up, opened my eyes, looking around the room that I was familiar with from the night before, and everything that I could see the day before was gone.
What happens in the aftermath of waking up with your eyesight completely constrained?
It's a good question, and it's a hard one to think back to that exact moment, because it was, I mean, pardon the pun, it was such a blur. When the doctors found out, they were in shock. I was in shock, my family was in shock. Never once in that moment did I think, this is forever, or this is going to be the rest of my life. It actually took the next couple of weeks of testing and this, that and the other for the doctors to come back and deliver the news that it wasn't what they originally thought, and they told us then and there that it was incurable, couldn't be fixed, and I'd be blind for life.
I don't even know what you do with that information, and somehow in your journey since, you've done Mount Kilimanjaro, Kokoda, you water ski, you coach a basketball team. Question is how and why?
I don't know how, and I don't necessarily know. No, I think the why for me is probably more important than the how. The how, everyone's able to do things differently, and yes, I have to do things differently. From water skiing, I have a waterproof helmet with a UHF system built in, so someone in the boat can give me instructions on when the boat's turning, things like that. From the Kokoda track, I had to get guided every single step of the way. So the person walking in front of me is describing the track, and yeah, every single step, left step, left foot, 30 degrees up, 30 centimetres high, up over a tree root, down onto a rock, and then you multiply that by 96 kilometres. But the why for me was so much more important, because for far too long I probably thought that losing my eyesight was going to dictate everything I could and couldn't do in life. But I was pretty determined to go, this is just a challenge that's happened that I can't control, just like happens to all of us in life of all different shapes and sizes, but I want to focus on what I can do, not what I can't.
How has your perspective on life changed since losing your sight?
Hugely. I mean, for me, you don't take things for granted now. The relationships I've been able to build are so much stronger and deeper, because I actually get to know people for who they are on the inside rather than what people see on the outside. Sometimes we make pretty quick judgments of people based on the way they look, and for me, I don't have the ability to do that anymore. So yeah, perspective's been massive.
Mike, if a near-death experience with meningococcal wasn't enough some 20 odd years ago, you then amputation had to make the call to amputate your remaining leg some 9 years later. I can't even imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah, well, nor could I. At the age of 16, if you had told me that I was going to go through this incredibly rare disease, when I was 18 years old, I was off on a football trip and I woke up after a 6-week coma to the news that my life had changed forever. And as you said, you know, what do you do in that aftermath? And I didn't have any answers. I'd never experienced anything like that for obvious reasons. Not many people do. But it was just a simple one step at a time process until I managed to be able to, I guess, move through those tougher times, just like Ben would have and just like everybody else does and the people that we speak about. Everyone goes through really tough times. Just those single small steps equal some pretty big results. But as you mentioned, the second leg, I was originally a single amputee. I had one leg missing below my knee and the other one was cut right through the arch. So it was kind of left with this injury that would never heal itself. And we talk a lot about, not focusing on the things that you can't control and focus on the things that you can control. And I was definitely just putting it on the back burner. We talk a lot about that in our sessions. Don't sit there and just ignore things because they never get better themselves. So that was the case with my leg. It took me 9 years to make a really drastic decision in a lot of people's eyes. In my own eyes, it was sort of, I knew what it was like to be an amputee. So I sort of had that, I guess, experience already. And I made a really drastic decision to get rid of that leg in order to improve my life. And since then, as I said, just to prove it to those at home, there's one of my legs as well. So I got that there for everyone to look at.
Don't fall off your chair now.
I won't fall off my chair. Yep. Oh, no, I've got all 5 pairs there just in case. So just backing up there. So, yeah. But in the meantime, through that experience, incredibly tough experience, being able to live some really amazing moments, married, kids, that sort of stuff. Got on with life just as Ben's done. And then very fortunate to have met Ben. We agree and we share a lot of our views on how to get through the tough stuff. And then we've come together and in order to have a bigger impact, we've come together as Legless and Blind to make people laugh, but also help people get through some of the tough stuff in life.
The disease has taken so much from you, but what has it given you?
I think perspective, 100%. I think, as I said before, I could never have known that it was going to happen once. First, I guess, from a 16-year-old perspective, I never would have known that was going to happen. But then when I became sick and then I woke up overnight, I really just had one choice. I could, 2 choices. I could whinge and moan about it and rue the fact that I'm, gone from a healthy, happy 18-year-old kid to now all of a sudden someone who lives with a disability. Or I could say, hey, there's nothing I can do about that. What can I actually do today to improve? And how can I get through it? And how can I make the best of a pretty rubbish situation that I'd found myself in? And that's always been my attitude. It still is today, and something that I think served me well.
You're going to be on stage today, both of you, and tomorrow, and Beef Australia have brought you here to be part of the event. What are some of the messages that you're going to be sharing with the audience about overcoming adversity?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, the biggest thing up here at Beef Week, I think we can all agree, farmers, the farming community, is made up of tough people. Just due to the lifestyle, due to the things that day in, day out, the farming community deals with, we want to get tough people talking about tough stuff. Yeah. Because as tough as they are with so much of what they do and what they deal with, there's still probably an area that we need to get better at talking about, and that's what we're here to throw the challenge out to them and to the community to talk about that tough stuff.
You advocate for mental health. Do you believe there is still a stigma?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, we share stories about that sort of stuff. Ben was just talking about tough people. My brother, totally different to me. He's a tradie. I couldn't build Lego. I can be honest with you. That's absolutely 100%. And I had a conversation with him. He was struggling with his mental health, and I was having a chat with him. And I said to him, "Why don't you go and see, someone about your mental health?" And he straight away said, "Oh, what? You think there's something wrong with me?" He says to me, and it was just sort of that moment where we had that conversation. I said, "Of course I don't." I go, "But life's tough. If there's something that you can do in your life that can help you get through that tough stuff in life, then go and do it. Don't shut the door on it." So I think there's absolutely a stigma. The more things that we can do, the more people that we can speak to with our community tours, whether it's at a football club, at a community event, or if it's Beef Week, wherever that is, if we can get out and have that conversation, get people to admit when something's not quite right, but more importantly, be brave and actually go and talk to someone about that. It's such an important thing, and more than anything else, it can save lives.
Compounding the stigma with rural mental health challenges in Australia is that many people on the land are isolated, and if they want to be reclusive in that time, they absolutely can be. One of your messages is about not going through the tough stuff alone.
Yeah, so important. And both Mike and I learnt that exact thing the hard way, because we did exactly what so many of us do naturally, and recluse, isolate, shut people out, bottle things up, but even more so than that, put on that brave face. So your neighbours, the people around you in your community, they often will still think that person's doing okay. And I think we showcase through vulnerability and us sharing some of those moments that we were bottling things up, what was going on behind closed doors, behind that mask, behind that brave face, the detriment that can have, and how important it is to talk up just to one person to start with. It doesn't necessarily have to be right. Get up and speak to the whole community about what's going on. It's find one person, and even if it's emptying out 10% of what's going on, that now gives you 10% of room for some other stuff that you can take on board. So it doesn't necessarily have to be tipping everything out all at once either. But that support network and having a community of people around you is so important, and the farming community gets one another. Like, we get tough times, we get tough stuff. We've just got to be better at talking about it.
Really practical advice. Ben and Mike, all the very best on stage today at 2 o'clock. James Lawrence Pavilion.
Yep, correct.
And I'm sure you're going to have a huge crowd watching on.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Well, we are off to a break, but stay with us because more from the Southern Hemisphere's premier beef